Look at this room. A window, a tall clock, a plant in its pot, a red rug catching the last of the light. But wait until you see what's wrong with it. There it is, a bat hanging in the middle of the air like it's always been there. A library next. A man stands among the shelves and one bright yellow cockatiel sits lit up against the dark books behind him. And then a real laboratory, glass bottles, a man in a white coat in front of a long row of arches. Nothing here looks wrong. Not yet. The man who painted these 3 rooms once said he could say with colour what I think of my contemporaries and stay out of a concentration camp for it. In plain terms, paint it, don't say it, and nobody official can arrest you for an opinion you never actually spoke out loud. This was Vienna before the Nazis took Austria, when saying the wrong thing out loud could cost you everything. So he didn't say it out loud, he put it in a painting. He trained as a chemist, ran a real laboratory by day, and invented these rooms at night. In his late 40s, he put on a uniform anyway, walked east into the war, and was never seen again. He left a wife and 2 daughters. No body was ever found, no grave, only the paintings and the strange things he kept placing in the paintings that he made. You know the phrase, the elephant in the room? Franz Sedlaczek's elephant was never an elephant. It was a bat, a cockatiel, a figure with a skull-like face standing exactly where a guest would stand. And whoever else happens to be in the room never reacts to it at all. Sedlacek painted these in Vienna through the 1920s and 30s. People love filing him under surrealism, but that is not actually where he came from. He came out of something colder, Neue Sachlichkeit, the new objectivity, a flat, almost photographic way of painting, built to show the world exactly as it was, nothing softened, nothing staged. Most people who painted that way used it to record ordinary life faithfully. Sedlacek used the exact same technique to make ordinary life hide something it should not. So what was he actually saying? Nobody knows the details. He made sure of that himself, but the Wien Museum's own retrospective on him describes these paintings as responding directly to the turbulence of his time, the disappointments of Austria's young republic, and the repressive climate of Austrian fascism creeping in before the Nazis ever crossed the border. He wasn't painting monsters for fun, he was painting what living through that actually felt like. Once you have seen the bat and the bird, you start checking every room he paints. Here is a dresser, a vase of leaves, 2 framed photographs, and a bare floor. And at the side of the room, a tall figure in a white shroud with a skull-like face, a scythe held across his body, standing where a visitor would stand. The room has not rearranged itself to make space for it. The furniture is calm, the light is calm, and death has simply been let in like anyone else. One room in this set is worth slowing down for. A studio for moulage, the old medical practice of building lifelike wax models of disease and anatomy used to train doctors. The shelves are packed with faces and none of them are real. At one point, a man in a white coat actually lifts the top off someone's head just to show how well it was made, as you do. None of it marks who in the room is real and who is wax. And these are not visions of hell or somewhere far away. They are living rooms, libraries, workplaces, the kind of room a respectable household kept and felt safe in. Remember that laboratory from the start of this video? The hall of bottles and instruments, the man in the white coat alone at the counter? Franz Sedlacek studied chemistry at Vienna's Technical University and after the war went to work at the Technical Museum, where he eventually ran the chemistry department. That laboratory was not an invented backdrop, it was the department he actually ran every day for most of his adult life. He never trained as a painter. He taught himself in the evenings around his job. So that exactness in the paintings is not a studio trick. It is a scientist's habit carried over. On a real specimen, that habit shows plainly. Every petal and curling tendril is painted with total precision, like he was cataloguing it for a textbook. And then, one small creature with a face, the kind no specimen sheet ever held. And then there is the room he kept for himself. A gardener at a window, full of daylight, bent over his bench with the same care, the same tools, the same exactness. Stalks that end in eyes, tendrils that coil around nothing, shapes with a mouth where a leaf should be. Insects too strange to name perch on his shoulder. This is not one strange thing in an ordinary painting anymore. It is what the same precision builds when nothing is checking its work, which changes what the first painting is. A chemist, in his own time, chose to paint a chemist alone in his laboratory, with the light going strange around him. It is the closest thing to a self-portrait he left. He did not paint these rooms as an outsider guessing at them. He painted the world he knew best, and then quietly poisoned it. Then Sedlacek goes outside. Everything changes. Out here, there is no room to keep things in order. A mountain road at dusk, rock that looks older than memory, sky going out, and one small car coming through the pass, headlights lit, the only modern thing for miles. Indoor, the wrong thing was a visitor in someone's home. Out here, it is the only sign of anyone alive, and it still looks like it wandered in from a different time. And then there is this, a single bare tree in an open landscape under a hazy moon. The dark shapes in the branches are not birds, they are ghosts, hunched along the limbs where crows would sit, looking down at the country below. Nothing in the picture explains them. They are simply up there, settled in, as if they've been watching the place for a long time. In 1925, Sedlacek was asked to illustrate a book called The Unicorn, written by Claire Grant Duff. What they got back was not a unicorn. It was a dark, striped creature with cloven hoofs and a goat's beard, standing alone among close, black trees, nothing remotely like the white horse with one horn everybody was expecting. Handed one of the most familiar myths in existence, the man still found a way to bring it into his own strange world. The woman behind that commission was no minor figure either. Claire Grant Duff sat for a John Singer Sargent portrait, was a childhood friend of Bertrand Russell, and spent years publicly arguing for birth control at a time when that alone could finish a woman's reputation. Somehow it fits that the unicorn she got back was never going to be the soft, pretty type. With the indoor paintings, you could always imagine leaving the room. Outside, there is nowhere to go, because the strange thing is no longer standing in the scene. It has become the scene. Until now, the strange things happened to a room, or it becomes the whole landscape. In this painting, for the first time, it happens to a person. Low in the frame, there's a man, the only figure in the picture, and the only red in it. He is clambering over a low wooden fence, a hat on his head, one arm flung out, his mouth open. The painting is named after him. Der Flüchtling, the refugee, the fugitive. A man who has had to leave somewhere. A man who has had to leave somewhere. Sedlacek painted this in 1928. 11 years before he put on a uniform, and long before any of what came later. It is the first time the strange thing in one of his frames is a person, out in the open and afraid. It is the same country he'd been painting all along. The failing light, the bare ground, the sense of a place a few degrees off from anywhere safe. The only difference is that now somebody is out in it. This painting foreshadows what actually happened to Sedlacek later, and it happened a long way from any room he ever painted. This is the man, Franz Sedlacek, the only clear photograph we have of him. In 1939, the Wehrmacht, the German army, called him up. He was 48, 3 years past the law's own peacetime cut-off of 45 years old. But that law had a wartime clause built in from the start, one that let the cut-off move whenever the war needed it to. Franz Sedlacek was unlucky and found himself conscripted into the German army. His own museum director tried to get him out of it. He just couldn't. He became an officer, then a captain. He served in Stalingrad, in Norway, in Poland. In January 1945, he was at Torun, an old fortress town in Poland. The front was collapsing. He vanished somewhere in the retreat. On the 1st of February 1945, he was officially declared missing. No body, no record of how he died, or whether he had even died there at all. Just a date and a single word on a form. Missing. He was not declared dead until 1972. His wife and 2 daughters had waited 27 years for that piece of paper. Go back to the first room, the clock, the plant, the red rug, the bat held in the air. He once said he could say with colour what he thought and stay safe doing it. For most of his life, that's exactly what these paintings were for him. He'd been doing it for years by then, quietly, in painting after painting. What any specific one of these was actually saying, we can only ever guess at. He'd spent years putting one strange thing into paintings that were otherwise fine. Those rooms are still here, still correct down to the clock and the last of the light on the floor. The bat is still in the air. He painted ghosts. Then he became one, just another soul who disappeared into a war that took millions of other lives too. 100 years later, the world has still not moved on. Sedlacek vanished with no grave and no photograph of what actually happened to him. Death, in his case, never got a face. Decades earlier, in a different country, another painter went the opposite way. He spent years giving death an actual face. The same face painted again and again until it looked less like an idea and more like someone you could recognise. His name was Carlos Schwabe. Click to view his whole story now.